Hello everyone and welcome to another SSCAIT report. My name is Choboswaggins, aka Jealous on Team Liquid, and today we will continue going through some of the recommended replays from our Discord channel, the link for which you can find in the description below. There will also be an announcement regarding AIST's Season 4 results and an upcoming event at the end of this broadcast, so I'll give you a spoiler warning so that you can leave the broadcast if you'd like to catch up on your own. But for now, let's hop right into the games. This is going to be between Microwave and Monster, with Monster spawning at the bottom position of Python, with Microwave spawning at the top as the Blue Zerg. Now, this was submitted by the author of Microwave, who said that the AI behaves stupidly, but it should be an interesting game nonetheless. Let's take a look. It looks like we're going for looks like I thought would be a drone trick. So what you can do sometimes is you can start the extractor and then use that drop in supply to build an extra drone, and then you cancel the extractor. That way you have 10 drones mining for a little bit of time before the overlord comes out. But instead, in this case, it is going to be an interesting gas first opening with a heavy commitment right away, 3 on gas, slightly later pool. Compare this to Monster, who's just now getting their pool and gas up. The pool is going to finish before Microwave, but Microwave should be up in time in order to hold any pressure at the ramp. This is especially good on ramped maps because of the fact that while pushing uphill, a concave can be formed on this ramp. So let's see what the production queue is going to tell us. It is going to be 6 Zerglings for Monster coming out. I expect to see the same for Microwave, who is able to get a faster layer, probably as a result of that early gas investment there. In terms of upgrades, both are researching speed, and yes, indeed, this is due to the fact that Microwave went for gas first. However, 1 Zergling is going to sneak in, it seems like, not 6 Zerglings coming out at the same time for Microwave here. Let's track these Zerglings, because we did see 2 of them pass. We see a bunch of Zerglings here now for Monster. There's more than enough to push these 4 Zerglings back. I'm not sure if Microwave is going to have enough to hold at the ramp here, but they did make some additional ones. It looks like they added some colonies as well, at least 1 colony and 1 spire. Interesting placement for the spire, though, perhaps not optimal. Zerglings engaging a little bit, both AI trading rather evenly here. So the advantage should go to Microwave in this situation because of the fact that they do have that slightly earlier spire than Monster. It's actually not as much earlier as I would have anticipated. I don't think that the advantage quite paid off the way it could have with an early gas, and actually all the Zerglings go down for Microwave here. This amount of Zerglings is not enough to take down the Sunken Colony, especially with the support of drones. Let's see how the Micro plays out here. It looks like the Zerglings are going to try to take the Sunken. They're not able to do so. The drones do a great job of microing it away, but that is a significant loss of mining time considering how low economy this player is. I mean, Monster is as well. They're both very low eco at this moment. Adding an evolution chamber, actually, perhaps recognizing the fact that it is later to the Mutalisks, but it shouldn't be so significantly later that it needs to invest in a spore colony. Perhaps just covering all of its bases because of the fact that it's harder to track. Mutalisks were trying to attack this Overlord, and so far I don't see anything that I would consider to be stupid behavior necessarily from Microwave here. Zerglings from Monster keeping tabs on the fact that the enemy is not expanded. More pressure on the Overlord. The Mutalisks from Monster not choosing to engage. It's obvious why. They are lower in Mutalisk count, perhaps because of the fact that that mineral investment into the evolution chamber and the spore colony are actually contributing to this more so than the gas count. If you notice, the gas has been floating for Monster. The mineral count is what's keeping the Mutalisk count lower. Perhaps a slightly greater investment into Zerglings as well earlier in the game has forced fewer drones to be utilized on the mineral line. Right now we see 8 workers for Microwave actually, and 10 for Monster. So Monster does have the economic advantage, but it did try to expand here without having the presence to do so. The colony perhaps wasn't able to decide whether it's going to be a sunk or spore. Would have been a interesting position either way for either of those colonies, but this hatchery should go down now, and that's a big loss for Monster, who invested a lot of minerals into that. That's another investment that I forgot to mention earlier when discussing the Mutalisk count. Mutalisk count has evened out somewhat. It's 6 to 5 at this point. And behind this, Microwave has been capable of taking their own expansion behind this as well, so definite advantage to Microwave here. Maybe this is what Microwave was describing when he said that there's still stupid behavior. One thing that you will see human players do is that even with a spore colony here, you can still pressure the gas, and the bouncing glaive worm shots can actually take down drones, or at least weaken them enough to force constant switching of drones from the mineral line to the gas. And that's something that Microwave could definitely take advantage of in this situation with his superior army count. But unfortunately not choosing to engage here. However, still holding on to that lead. Two Zerglings chasing down the one Zergling from Monster here. Let's look at the expansion. Looks like it's going to be a Sunk and a Spore colony here. Let's look at the production. No, it's actually going to be two Spore colonies. This position quite suboptimal, I would say. Probably better to have one over here, which covers both the mineral line and the gas here. Let's take a look back at Monster. Monster now economically behind as well at 14 workers to 19. This Zergling here was keeping tabs on this drone, but the Mulisks came to protect. Very nicely done by Monster there. The expansion is going to be placed again, and Microwave has just given up on movement altogether. It seems like it is going to still engage intelligently here. Ooh, I like this, the way that the Mutalisks from Microwave were tracking the Mutalisks from Monster. The Zerglings are applying pressure to the hatchery, but great defense from Monster here. Took down a Scourge as well, using great Microwave with the Mutalisks. And this hatchery could go up at this point. What are we adding here? It looks like a Queen's Nest. We're going up to Hive Tech, which is interesting because I don't think the upgrades are maxed out. No, we do have one Carapace only for Microwave. That's still one more upgrade than Monster in this case. So, yeah, nice pickoffs there from Monster as well. Still picking off some Zerglings. There is some damage done to the colony, it seems like. No, that colony was taken down earlier before. The hatchery is damaged, though. Looks like there is going to be more pressure. Let's look at that army count yet again. 11 Mutalisks for both. Just one Scourge up is Microwave right now, sorry. And let's track this. Looks like Monster feels like it can engage, even though it has the upgrade disadvantage. Great anti-Scourge micro there, one of the toughest things for human players to learn. There was recently a thread about that on Team Liquid, like what is the hardest movement that you can achieve in Brood War, and anti-Scourge micro is one of them, but as you see, the AIs, the top Zerg AIs do it with ease. Interesting engagement here is the Mutalisks from Microwave splitting up in order to minimize the damage from the Glaive Worms. I'm trying to keep up with my mouse. I'm sorry. I don't know a better way to do this. And it's going to get chased down. But there are two Spore colonies here. I'm not sure if this is an engagement that Microwave wants to take. There is a double, more than double the Mutalisk count now of Monster. But Monster, again, did invest into that those defensive structures, which will keep it alive a little bit longer. But it was at the expense of its economy. Note the difference in worker count. And the tech is also going to be behind as well, since we already do see that Greater Spire coming in. Let me take a look at that. Yes, indeed, it's almost done. And a lot of hatchery has been added as well, so I'm expecting to see more Zerglings coming out now to apply pressure here. There's only one second colony here. It is weaker. Mutalisk count is still go. Actually, no. Now it's Monster who's advantaged in the Mutalisk count. That's an interesting thing to note. So maybe Microwave needs to be a little bit more careful, but the Zergling pressure is continuing to force Monster into a defensive position. This is great play from Microwave, tactically speaking. The Zerglings here, it looks like Monster can't decide which army to engage with. The Zerglings are important to take down, but because the Sunken Colony is so weak, and now we have Devourers out on the map, this is very unique for a ZVZ. You rarely get to see this. The Devourers are slower than the Mutalisks. There was some Mutalisk pressure here as well, it seems like. By the way, these hatcheries are kind of spaced out kind of far, and again, these Spore colonies are only covering maybe this area of the map, not covering down here. But let's take a closer look at the engagements. Again, Zerglings forcing out. Ooh, and I missed this. Zerglings did arrive in numbers is sufficient to take down this whole entire base, and that's going to give a firm advantage to Microwave. Even though the Mutalisk count is lower, the Devourers should help. What Devourers do is they make it so that every hit does an additional damage for each layer of acid spores that are on the enemy. They're that purple goop that you may see on an enemy. So every hit from a Devourer adds another layer of acid spores up to 9. And that means that, let's say, with 2 layers of acid spores, you get hit with the first Mutalisk Glaive Worm for 9 damage. Now it does 11 damage. And that makes it an amazing tool to use in conjunction with Mutalisks, because Mutalisk Glaive Worms hit 3 times. So that means that you technically are adding damage 3 times for every attack of a Mutalisk that hits multiple enemies. Looks like more Zerglings are trying to run in now. They kind of ignored the natural here, which is kind of surprising, but with the Mutalisk count rising for Microwave and Monsters being at equal numbers now with no Devourers, I don't believe is going to be able to hold this much longer. There goes the Acid Spores. You can see them on the orange Mutalisks here. More Mutas now are engaging. It looks like more defensive colonies are attempted to be placed, but the Mutalisk count now has dropped to 9, 16 to 17 and 3 for Microwave in terms of Mutalisks and Devourers, and now they're just going to park right on top of this. Even with the Spore colonies here, the Mutalisks are going to love this trade. They're going to start taking down the colonies. The Zerglings arrive in number, and yes, this has to be GG. Very, very well played by Microwave here, and Monster going down to another high-level Zerg AI here. Very great play to get us started in this broadcast. Moving on to the next game, we have Stardust as the blue Protoss, spawning at the bottom right of Moonglaive. The current bot to beat, should we say, has been winning a lot of tournaments since its release last year, and it's up against Willy T spawning at the 12 o'clock as the purple Terran here. So TVP on this map is a bit interesting. There are some unique scenarios because of the fact that there's 2 entrances to the natural. So pressure from 2 sides is possible if the AI chooses to go for it. I'm not sure if Stardust is coded to do that, but it does make stuff like bunker expanding a little bit more risky, because even if you do place your bunker here, and that does technically cover both sides, you can't effectively block with SCVs on both sides, or without a lot of effort at least, if there is a run-by attempt of some sort. Willy T is going to scout his opponent now, and I expect Stardust to go for a very standard approach, something that standard approach to the early game, gateway cybernetics. Should be noted though that it does often add a second pylon before cybernetics in order to get those early zealots out. There's the cybernetics core. It's going to get a couple zealots out. I really love doing this in human versus human play because zealots are hard to deal with, even up to the higher levels, higher ranks of ladder. Anti-zealot micro with marines is difficult. In the meantime, we do see Willy T taking a very, I would want to say, ambitious Rax expand here. Given that we know that Stardust loves to apply pressure, especially with high Dragoon counts, could be something dangerous potentially. The probe is running around the main base, keeping a tab on what Willy T is doing. Willy T kind of walked past it there, didn't attack the probe, unfortunately. Bunker is coming up again. It's in a good position, which covers both the back door and the front door, but it is also quite far forward, so if there's going to be repair SCVs that need to be pulled, they kind of have a little bit of a distance to travel. They might have to be preemptively pulled around the bunker in order to repair it against any Dragoon pressure, which, as we know from Stardust, is going to be coming in shortly. We see 3 gateways, and I expect to see a 4th one coming up shortly thereafter in order to apply the pressure. But actually, it looks like maybe no. It's going to be 3 gateway Nexus. This is a definite evolution in Stardust play. Possibly a reaction to the Rax FE. In theory, a 4-gate Dragoon bust can still work against Rax FE. In fact, it's one of my favorite builds against this option, but I'm not sure about moving out the Marines there. And yeah, now the barracks placement is in a good position to prevent a run-by, and here comes those long SCV pulls that I was talking about. Losing a Marine there was definitely not ideal. You definitely want to conserve your minerals in this position because of the fact that you're going to be repairing. You don't want to delay your tech, your engineering bay, armory, additional factories, siege tank, and siege mode. Those are all very costly things to have, and we have a siege up on the ramp, which looks like it might not be ideal, but it's actually in a decent position here. A little bit further ahead. Needs to repair this barracks, though, if it wants to add factories in the future. It is burning down, which might slow down its ability to produce army in the mid-game if it does not repair it, and definitely don't want to be replacing a barracks that you can readily repair. SCVs at this point intelligently staying forward. Nice attempt at a run by here from Stardust. Takes down both tanks. That's a huge pickoff. Losing the early tanks pretty much negates any potential for an aggressive opening from Willy T, not opening, but aggressive mid-game where you do a timing push of some sort. Losing those first 2 tanks definitely sets you on the back foot, much more so than it does the Protoss for losing those Dragoons. The Stardust is actively mining now on 2 bases. Looks like Willy T is going for a sneaky 3rd here, actually. Early Goliath, I'm not sure about this decision, and especially not sure about it running out into Dragoon fire here. Looks like the Marines baiting the Dragoons to come in there, I guess. Siege tank count is still quite low because of the first 2 losses, but the Dragoon count isn't impressively high either. 3rd base already up and running for Stardust as well. Dragoons continue to periodically run in and take a couple of losses here, which I'm kind of surprised to see. We have seen that in last week's broadcast with Nightcat, where Stardust, even though it has great concaves, pushes back. I mean, it runs back against tank pushes quite nicely. Sometimes it does stray a little bit too far forward, and we're seeing those losses accumulate now as the siege tank count is getting closer and closer to the total amount of dragoons. But what do we see here? We see zealot production, and we see a Citadel of Adun. Speed is going to be very effective against a very tank heavy composition, as we see here. Normally what you want to have is vultures in order to kind of create a meat shield against those zealots, but we don't see very many of them here, and throwing one away is definitely not helpful either. Little known fact, Goliaths and Vultures have the same average DPS against a Zealot and Dragoon, I believe, as this is due to the fact that Vultures do 20 damage to shields, but they do less damage to the actual main health of both units, while Goliaths do a very steady amount of damage. However, as we all know, the Goliaths, big losses there for Stardust, running in a little bit too deep. But yeah, Goliaths do cause gas, which cuts into your tank count, but this doesn't seem to be the problem for Willy T here. Perhaps Willy T could have benefited from more production facilities, 5 factories now on 3 bases, and the push is on. So this army right here is definitely not enough to push back Willy T, and by the way, Willy T, incredibly strong performer here, and it's actually going to go push in straight to here to support its drop from earlier. Is the dropship going to go down? No, it gets saved. It got caught a little bit off guard there, but Stardust didn't capitalize. I would have liked to see it possibly try to take down those siege tanks, maybe utilize the splash damage, but it looks like it's a counterattack from Stardust, but Stardust thinks the better of it here as well. Despite there not being all that many units here with combination. Oh, the bunker is actually empty. This could be dangerous. This counterattack is huge, but the production facilities are there. It should be noted that there's absolutely no mines on the map at this point as well. Quite an interesting decision to avoid mines altogether, but it does get rebuffed. Nice arc here from the siege tanks, and now we're going to start seeing that push coming in towards Stardust. Stardust has lost a lot of units recently. Willy T up an army supply, behind in workers, but that's not that significant considering the timing of this push. It's hitting, well, yeah, I mean, we already know that Stardust is kind of, it avoids going into higher tech. We do see the Templar archives here, but no Templar production of any sort, so I'm guessing that it was mainly for the Forge upgrades that it's getting. This base is going to get denied, while taking this great position here on this high ground is going to make it very difficult for Stardust to push up as the base is getting taken down. Probe's actually transferring there as the base is going down. That's going to cause a lot of worker count losses here. Economies are evening out, and it looks like, nope, there are a couple of mines here, but definitely not any out in the middle of the field. But yeah, this high ground position is so deadly for Willy T to be holding. It's going to make it incredibly difficult for Stardust to bust out, and eventually the pressure should be coming down to these bottom bases here. Where we see one siege tank, some Goliaths. I probably would have actually preferred most of the Goliaths to stay up here to, again, buffer the siege tanks from any zealot pressure, but they are useful here as well. Looks like Stardust is desperately trying to run away to its new expansion that it's trying to remake here, but this base is going to go down as well. And actually, what happened to the army? It looks like it was all pulled to take out this base. That's kind of weird to me. I think this gives Stardust an opportunity to reclaim the middle of the map, but the zealot count is still incredibly low. Only 1 zealot for 34 dragoons against the siege tank heavy composition such as the one that we see Willy T have. This is going to play heavily into Willy T's favor. Generally, when your opponent is more siege tank heavy, you want to go more zealot heavy, and vice versa. It's kind of this dance that Protoss and Terran do in the matchup. They both try to adjust their composition based on what the enemy is fielding. In this case, this heavy Dragoon count is going to be okay at picking off single siege tanks here and there, and smaller forces here and there as well. So those were some pretty bad losses for Willy T, but in terms of the main composition here, it's going to absolutely Shrek these Dragoons when they start engaging. But there isn't much defense at this expansion. I don't think that Willy T is all that worried because high ground siege tank's too good. The flank from the main army is going to prevent both the reinforcements and is going to take down the main force. Looks like there is some pressure happening on Willy T's fort as well, which just cost them some workers, but it's still not as bad as Stardust's position at this moment. Stardust trying desperately to take a new base here. This base surprisingly stayed up. It's clear that it was pressured at some point, but it looks like Willy T was forced to reprioritize. But now, having cleared up that army, clearing up this army is going to start pushing that new base at the 2 o'clock position, and I don't expect it's going to be able to stay up for much longer. The economy for Stardust is going to struggle now, 39 workers only. Even with the added AI efficiency, you definitely want to have more than the Terran, and you want to have more bases than the Terran, which Willy T does, which Stardust at this point does not have, as in more bases than the Terran. And yeah, now this is an absolutely scary scary push. 104 army, 43 siege tanks with 8 Goliaths in support. This is an absolutely devastating push now, and I don't imagine that Stardust will be able to stay in this game much longer. I just realized that this is overlapping a little bit. I'm going to move it for you. Yeah, so now, because it's almost purely Dragoon production, it's going to be kind of forced to stay in this area here. It's not going to be able to move down the ramp. If Willy T decides to stay here, which is not, but yeah, yet again, the income from Stardust is going to be pretty much destroyed with the falling of this base, and Stardust is not going to have much to say about it. We see now that the income has zeroed out. Stardust using the last of its money to produce I think it was probably a probe and a Dragoon, yes indeed. And yeah, so the Templar Archives were added for the 3-3 upgrades, and interestingly enough, Willy T is behind on the upgrades, just getting their second armor upgrade now. It seems like it definitely should have been at 3-3 at this point, but with this kind of army count, it doesn't really matter. This game is 100% over at this point. Willy T is now starting to take the rest of the map with impunity, and yeah, GG. Very well played by Willy T. A lot of great progress over the past year from this author, something that we'll touch upon later. And yeah, congratulations to Willy T. Also took this base up here as well. So overall, very solid play from both AIs. May stem at least in part due to the early losses from Stardust, although they did pick off the first few siege tanks. And there's still some room for exploiting this, because again, this kind of siege tank composition is weaker against a mass zealot composition, or at least a zealot heavier composition, something that Stardust seems unwilling to do. Also, you know, we're still talking about what is very much a work in progress for Stardust, as it is for most AI, in the fact that Stardust does not go up above that 1.5 tech in terms of army composition, stays on Dragoons and Zealots. It's very hard to win a muscle battle like against Terran, which is so siege tank heavy, with just Zealots and Dragoons, not even a shuttle in play. So Stardust going down to Willy T, and yeah, thank you for the suggestion from Purple Wave for this one. Next replay is going to be Martin, pardon my pronunciation, Ruyakers. I believe this is also the creator of Leadabot, aka one of the strongest AIs from a couple years gone by. Might be even the same AI, but I'm not 100% sure. Looks like when I resized the window, the production stuff moved around a little bit. Sorry about that. They're against Firebot, spawning at the 12 o'clock on destination here as the Yellow Zerg. And the excitement here is that this is a new AI. Now, one thing that you can immediately notice from this new AI is that it doesn't have the mining efficiency down pat. This is something that you often see in people who are just starting out in Brood War. They keep sending drones to the same minerals which are already being mined, which causes this inefficiency because of the fact that the drones have to move around to find an empty mineral patch. Compare that to what Stardust does, which is first it seeds all of the minerals individually, and then the next round of workers, they go to the farthest minerals so that they are arriving with minimal lost time, and then they wait for the mineral to become available to start mining it. So in this case, we already see some potential room for improvement for Firebot here, who is opening with a really early pool. I'm sorry, really early sunken as well, which I think is quite interesting. It's not something that you would typically see. And also a one-base Hydralisk, and also something that you would not typically see in this matchup. In the meantime, Martin Ruyakers, I'm going to call it Leadabot from now, I'm sorry. Leadabot is, no, I'll just call it Martin, how about that? Yeah, Martin is going for 2 racks off of 1 base. This is totally viable, totally reasonable against a 1-base play from Zerg. The bunker may be extra as well. Both AI seem to be playing a little bit more defensively than is normal, and this is a very old school all-in 1-hatch lurker. This was the way that people played when the game first came out. One of the first televised matches, I believe it was Skeleton, playing as Zerg, went for this build, 1-hatch lurker off of 1 base. If I'm not mistaken, might have been 2-hatch on 1 base. But the key to holding this kind of aggression is actually to set up sort of contained with your Marine medics. When I see something like this, what I like to do is I like to send out some SCVs, build a bunker, some turrets, and that way the lurkers can't actually ever get anywhere near pressuring you. The one thing you do have to worry about is drop tech in conjunction with the lurkers, but that also usually comes from overlords being stationed in locations where it's already close to vulnerable areas, for example your mineral line. In this case we don't see that, and we actually see a sneaky expo. This reminds me a bit of the way that Monster plays, actually. Monster played against Stardust in the show match and in the finals of the SSCAIT tournament from this year. We see that bunker and turret coming up now in the natural. I would have maybe liked to see two, because the lurkers still can run by here, and that would be problematic considering the fact that we still don't have an academy, still no scanning available, and actually no, that means also no medics. So this is, yeah, this is a very interesting situation, something that you would almost never see in human play, and this is most likely the closest thing you'll see to super old school Brood War, you know, before pro gaming was a thing, before esports. Can you think about that? Can you imagine that? Before esports, this is how people played, and that's almost endearing in a way too. Now, judging based on solely the build, I'm thinking that this might not be Leadabot, so I'm really sorry to the developer here if it's not Leadabot. So I'm going to continue calling it Martin. So sorry about that. Leadabot was known for going for biomech in TVP. I played against it a couple of years ago in a, I think it was either a show match or a tournament, and it was very close to beating me with that biomech play. But more closer to this game, it's actually going for a very fast hive with a defiler mount, and the comment on this replay was that it's kind of unique to see an AI that is new, so you know, someone who's probably new to the scene, immediately go for such late game play. And defiler lurker is going to do a lot against this pure marine medic composition. A couple of swarms will be enough to take down this whole forward position, and then Martin could be potentially locked inside their main base for a while. We do see siege tanks out, but siege tanks are kind of ineffective when when Dark Swarm is already in play, but actually we don't see it anywhere forward, and the lurkers are way too aggressive here in this position, pushing against turrets and bunkers with no real support. And given the fact that it's only 2 hatch production, it's I don't think it wanted to throw away that whole army. Only 2 drones mining minerals in the main, so definitely some work for improvements here, especially in how the AI determines how to push. This seems more similar to the default AI, which when it doesn't have an opponent in range, it unburrows and moves forward. Nice swarm though here, and this is going to be problematic for Martin, because it seems like they are not really realizing the situation that they're in. They are scanning a lurker that they can't attack. This lurker is exposed though, would want to see some more Zerglings here so that the Consume could add some more Dark Swarms. We do have that research in already, which is the correct play here. And okay, there we go, there's another Dark Swarm, but it's not really advancing the position at all for for Firebot into Martin's base. And again, these lurkers run a little bit too far forward. Is it out of scans? I think that Martin is out of scans, and oh, that is a deadly swarm here. With the vessel out now though, there will be some of detection available. There is a Spire, I believe. Yes, there is a Spire, so Scourge might come into play as well. And this Dark Swarm is doing a great job. It killed the last siege tank. One more swarm on these bunkers would disable this natural base, which could be devastating. And actually, it's not even necessary. There's no Marines in these bunkers. These lurkers are taking them all out. The Marine medic and siege tank forces all in the back of the base here, and that is going to be some heavy losses most likely here. Siege tank is going to prove useful here on the high ground especially, but the Marines are all clumped up on the ramp, but the lurkers can advance with Dark Swarm. This will take down everything. There are 4 lurkers left here. Zerglings run in. I would have liked to see them consumed maybe instead of just running in. There's the Dark Swarm. That's going to help take down this command center and keep these Marine medics at bay. Another Dark Swarm here, very nice. And yet another one. Firebot doing an absolutely fantastic job now of keeping the lurkers covered, but consuming a Defiler, I thought I heard. Another swarm here. No, okay, here is safer, definitely. Another Dark Swarm. No. Oh, here comes the Scourge, but they run into them M&Ms. They don't see the science vessel yet, so yeah, definitely some kicks to be worked out, but overall, absolutely impressive play from Firebot here as a new AI to the scene. There we go. We're taking down the vessel now. And let's look at the economy situation for Martin. Yeah, we're down to the last 4 mineral patches with barely anything left to mine. The economy for Firebot is still minimal at best in the main base here. 17 drones total. If we can count that there's 6 on gas, that's 10 on minerals, which is still enough to produce all of this. I mean, it's definitely not a lot, but given the tech advantage and the fact that it has this advantage in, I guess, how to handle late game. Great snipe on the vessel there, by the way. That's commitment. And is going to continue to push forward. Where's the Defiler? The Defiler's gone. The new one has come in. And now when you're on top of the production facilities with the Lurkers, it's all but over. We definitely want to see a Dark Swarm here, and there it is. And now the Terran is basically incapacitated. It can't mine more minerals for much longer. It can't produce army, and the army that it can't produce is going to go into the waiting claws and spikes of the Lurker. So yeah, very nice to see new AIs in the community. Very nice to see some late game oriented play. It's like it still reminds me so much of the way that people played way back in the day, because before there was such a thing as a standard or a meta, everyone just kind of would learn how to play on their own, you know, within their own circles of friends, you know, within their own channels and communities. And so there would be kind of like competing metas in a way, and you would go on ladder and you would see things that you've never seen before. And it would be something like one hatch layer lurker into 2 hatch hive into defilers like this. It would be stuff like this. Obviously not done quite as well, but in some ways also better. And yeah, Martin is not long for this world now. Firebot doing a great job of taking him down. And I think we can comfortably move on to the next game here. Let's go to... yeah, alright, let's do this one. This is something that I asked Nightcat to reserve for myself, but I'll get into that more in a moment. Here at the left side of Heartbreak Ridge, we have Monster as the Teal Zerg. We saw them earlier, and they are a top Zerg competitor. And in the right, we have Banana Brain, a top Protoss player, as the white Protoss. Now, this is one of my favorite builds in all of Brood War, and this is something that Banana Brain will go. I don't want to spoil it too much. Well, what should I say? You guys already know, because I'm going to definitely include it in the title. It's called the Stove. Why is it called the Stove? I don't remember. I think it's probably named after a guy who made it up. So the way the Stove works is you open with Dark Templar off of like one base, right? Sometimes 2 bases, and then you go, no, you open with Scouts. I'm very sorry, I just messed up my favorite build. You open with Scouts, so that's already unusual, because Scouts are not a great unit. They're very expensive, they take a long time to build, they're slow without their speed upgrade, which is incredibly expensive to get to because the fleet beacon costs so much. Corsair are faster, they do take down overlords pretty well. And they're important for scouting. They do produce faster, and they're cheaper, but the Scout does bring the advantage of being able to shoot at workers, which forces usually an early Hydralisk production or an evolution chamber. So here we see the Stargate coming down already, and Monster is aware of this. Monster does have Zerglings coming forward, but with 2 Zealots, it is going to be able to defend itself for now. Monster does not seem too concerned about the presence of the Stargate, although as I say that, it is throwing down that early Hydralisk den, recognizing the need for anti-air. And yeah, so Scouts, they shoot at drones, so therefore you need anti-air in the form of Spore Colonies or Hydralisks to prevent the damage from being done. And you open with Scouts. Now, the next step after this is to get a Citadel of a Dune and go into Templar Archive. So there's a Citadel, and you start making Dark Templar. So the logic is that you use the Scouts to kill the Overlords, and then there's no detection for the Dark Templar. That's why if the opponent did opt to go into Hydralisk defense against the Scouts, they will now be forced to add Spore Colonies, which in this case Monster is doing, possibly again as a reaction to the Citadel. And so this puts a huge economic strain on the Zerg player because of the fact that they're using their drones to produce, first of all these tech structures in the evolution chamber and Hydralisk den, but also all these colonies as well. So that's economic pressure, and each one of them costs a worker. And this is at a point in the game when they have only 2 hatcheries, maybe 3 hatcheries at most. The first Scout going down, that is heavily unfortunate, because you do need those in order to take down the Overlords. There is an Overlord in the premises in the proximity, sorry, of the main base of Banana Brain, and that's usually the first Overlord that you want to make sure is not there anymore, because that's the Overlord that will prevent your Dark Templar from moving out and helping you secure an expansion. These Hydralisks are being microed beautifully against these Zealots, but the numbers seem to be just enough for Banana Brain to take his natural, and there comes the first Dark Templar. The Overlord, unfortunately, nowhere near. So this Dark Templar is going to do fine. The Hydralisks are checking its position, and now the Overlord, if I was the Zerg, I would have definitely started moving it back towards there. However, the damage is starting to build up. This Overlord here is going to provide some vision. The Dark Templar should wear away, gets surrounded very nicely by the Zerglings here, by Monster. So that DT goes down. Is there another one here? No, that's just a Zealot. No third base on the way yet, but there is a third hatchery now for Monster. The expansion coming up for Banana Brain. So what do you do after Dark Templar, you might ask? It's Arbiters. You go straight into Arbiter tech. In some ways, it makes no sense. Like, it's a build that should not work. Why? It's because it relies on anti-air and detection, which for all three races can be summarily achieved with static defense. So cannons, turrets, and spore colonies, they all shoot air units and they all provide detection, right? However, it's a way to kind of steeze on your opponent. And in certain situations, especially if Overlord speed is late, if there's not enough scans for Terran, if the science vessels aren't out yet, it could actually lead to some devastating situations. Now, this is not an engagement that I would personally take because of the fact that there's sunken colonies here and the Zealot production isn't quite there. The Zealot numbers aren't there because of the fact that so much was invested into early tech. There was a late expansion, relatively speaking, for normal PvZ, and now we see a Corsair added as well, which is interesting. Ooh, a stasis on top of everything. That is very, very nice. So yeah, this is a unique treat to see. I do want to give shout-outs to Team Liquid user by the name of Crown Royal, who further developed this build to create the Royal Stove. Why is it called the Royal Stove? If you notice here, Banana Brain expanded to a second base and took a second gas in order to make all of these expenditures possible, whereas with the Royal Stove, as it came to be known, you stay on one base the whole time, and you fund this whole venture with one gas. The fact that there's two gases is going to allow Banana Brain to start mixing in Dragoons. Dragoons are notoriously good at this point because of the fact that they're able to kite most units that have more range than Hydralisks. But again, the production isn't quite there. Now there's Scourge actually chasing down that Arbiter and does eventually go down. But yeah, so Dragoons are really good in the modern AI meta because of the fact that they have such great micro potential against basically all units. Scourge taking down the Corsair there as well. But at this juncture, you can't help but feel that Banana Brain is advantaged. A heavy worker lead, army lead as well, which is not to be unexpected, but this messy game has, I think, pushed the logic of Monster to the limit here. It's spending a lot of gas on Scourge to take down the pesky air units from Banana Brain. So even though the opening with the scouts wasn't ideal, it has created a mid-game situation where Banana Brain is ahead in the long run after opening with the the stove build. Now, take a note of the fact that it is still on 3 gateways. It is floating quite a bit of money, so it could think about adding more. What is this tech structure that we're adding here? Robotics facility. Yeah, this will be important for observers. And again, think about the gas pressure that you're going into by going into Fast Stargate, going into Dark Templar immediately after, and then going into Arbiter off of 1 or 2 gases. It is quite a lot of gas, so you know your other techs such as Dragoons, Dragoon range, robotics facilities are quite delayed. We are on 3 gases now though, so it is a better position now for Banana Brain in terms of gas income. However, still, no Templar out on the map in terms of High Templar and Storm, and this base might actually get taken down by Monster. I think it probably should be. There is an army from Protoss, but it's not all that much. It did manage to push away some of the reinforcements. This Nexus should be prioritized, though. This Nexus is being prioritized, kind of, no. Overlord speed is in. Scourger ready here to try to engage. No, the Nexus is staying up, and I would love to see some cannons added, yes, here, and I would actually put them all over here, but the Zerg army comes back to try to take down this base, takes down a couple probes, and the army from Protoss has been whittled down quite significantly. The Nexus can go down. Huge stasis here. What a shot. Very nicely done there by Banana Brain to stasis those units, but the army left over is not enough to really capitalize on it. It looks like it was more of a survival stasis than anything, but you would ideally want is to have enough army to clear up all these forces, then surround this and take it out when it unfreezes, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be the case. 70 workers now for Banana Brain, who we've seen in the SSCAIT tournament, is going to continue producing probes until it hits that 75 number. And actually, this base might now be in danger after the probe transfer as well. There's a lot of probes here. Small piecemeal armies from Banana Brain are not going to be capable of taking down this Hydralisk force, it seems like, and throwing down a Nexus right in front of the Zerg army maybe not the ideal solution there. It should be noted, however, in the meantime, that monster did go up to 3 bases. It looks like it's starting a 4th and a 5th here as well. The gateway count has been upped to 7 now, but that's still not quite enough for a 3-base Protoss, especially if this 4th base stays up. But part of the problem, I believe, is the fact that Banana Brain has been hemorrhaging money this whole time. Look at the mineral count, it's incredibly low, and that's partially also because of the fact that it has constant worker production, and it's not rebuilding that Protoss ball that it needs. These Zealots are going to chase down these Hydralisks, but there is Zerglings here as well. Very small stasis here on 2 Zerglings. Shuttle Reaver now in play as well. Banana Brain very good at this play. But with Mulisks in the mix now, you might want to start adding more stairs. Ooh, and those Arbiters might get taken down. Both of them do. Shuttle is still alive, but the Reaver goes down. And yeah, this is a very tight game now. Monster stabilized quite nicely. It managed to take some great trades against small Protoss armies. It managed to make the Arbiter investment not worth it in a lot of situations in this mid-late game scenario, and now that it's climbing up to 4 to 5 bases, I expect to see it be advantaged going into the late game. There's only 2 mining bases right now for Protoss, and the 3rd one is almost mined out. It is trying to replace that 4th one here. Looks like there was an attempt at some counter pressure. Now, Reavers would be great against all the static defense. They're great against Zerglings as well, and to be quite honest, Monster's army is still not that big, but oh! Looks like, oh no, that was an Observer that went down, but now both shuttles go down as well. There's no more Reavers inside. That was definitely good pickoffs from Monster there. Mutalisks applying pressure. We've seen this before, the way that the Mutalisks can force Banana Brain into producing probes, and this makes them hemorrhage money and not gain an army advantage that they could possibly have. Monster even taking the middle base now. This is a great play for Monster on this map. There is not that many more bases for it to take, as opposed to 3-player and 4-player maps, which often see Zerg get about 60% of the map and Protoss about 40. In this case, we have it's going to be 6 bases versus 5, which is a lot closer and therefore benefits Protoss a bit more. But it should be noted again that Banana Brain has been hemorrhaging army for a long time. As a race went through a lot of the minerals on its side of the map, whereas Monster, I mean, technically it did take its 3rd very late, so its natural is going to be mined out at around the same time as Banana Brain, so it's going to be interesting to see how this play develops. I'm going to try to focus more on the armies now and see if there's any additional damage being done to the economy here at these new bases. Still in desperate need of cannons here. It has the money for it now. I would have loved to see like maybe 6, 7 cannons here and here to defend against Mulisks and Hydralisks at the same time while they're going up that ramp, but now we're seeing a push in the middle. This is going to be huge. The Reaver, unfortunately, is kind of in a bad position down here. The what's called the shuttle gets sniped. So the Observer is still alive though, and this middle base gets taken out. So now it swings a little bit more into Banana Brain's favor, who's ahead in workers. As long as the worker count seems to be at 70, it's not interested in producing many more. With the Mutalisks down as well, Monster is not harassing that economy as much, and therefore the worker production is not being forced out of Banana Brain, and that is allowing Banana Brain to focus entirely on army production, and is now building up what is quite a scary army, double the supply of the Zerg. Notable absence of High Templar, but as we've seen before, Monster dodges storms like a pro. So perhaps this Dragoon Reaver composition might actually be quite effective against these Hydra Zergling and occasional Mutalisk composition. That we do see 1 Templar now on the map. It would be great in chokes like this where the Zerg can't actually dodge the storm. It is trying to apply pressure here. It's actually trying to apply pressure in this location as well. There's a Reaver. Looks like there's no Observer though. It's for the Lurker that is here, but this base should still go down. Burrow drones, nice move there, but unfortunately it's not going to be enough. This base is going to go down, and this engagement here still continuing a little bit. Zerg desperate to try to defend his base, dodges that storm quite nicely. Army being kind of split in priorities along these ridges here. This is why this is a really interesting and feature-heavy map. But now the sandwich on the Hydralisk. Oh my god, look at this beautiful engagement from Banana Brain. Very nicely done. Catches the Zerg off guard with this sandwich, and is actually trying to take the main base. I'm sorry, the middle base here. It might get taken down by these Zerglings and Hydralisks. There's no pylon, no cannons here, which again, I'm not a fan of seeing. Lots of pros being transferred around now as the 3rd base is almost mined out for the Protoss player. But with this army composition, another stasis here, 190 supply to 90. You have to feel for the Zerg player who has been through so much in this point. I feel like a lot of human players would have quit sometime in the mid-game after seeing the massive stasises and feeling so swagged on, basically. The pressure from the Dragoons and Reavers. The ranged is doing great work against the Hydralisk and Zerglings and the Sunken Colonies here. Lots of drones at this natural that didn't transfer away. Lots of losses here. Drones are being desperately pulled to the front to try to place more Sunken Colonies, but they're not being able to do so. Mining is now down to only 2 bases for Monster, and Banana Brain is actually taking the mineral only from Monster as well. So after some early game shenanigans, some mid-game losses, and some, you know, difficult situations, Banana Brain looks like it might pull out this win in the end. Very nicely done here by Banana Brain against one of the strongest AIs in the scene, Monster, and the finalist of this year's SSCAIT tournament. Oh, it's so redundant to say SSCAIT tournament because the T stands for tournament, but I got so used to it because it's SSCIT report, but you get what I'm saying. SSCAI tournament, let's say. The tournament proper. Ooh. Yeah, so these are the last 2 mining bases for Monster. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so we can maybe squeeze in another game, because what we have left here is all the tech going to go down for Monster. Banana Brain comfortably mining off of multiple bases. Storm's coming in now to pressure these bases. That lurker goes down. This one's weak. Need an observer here. I'm not sure about sending pure Templar armies anywhere, but at this point it doesn't really matter all that much for Banana Brain, because Monster is going to lose this base, even if it maybe before it even mines out, even though there's not much left. Drone's burning desperately, and yeah, Monster recognizes that it's an unwinnable position, and it calls the GG. So I am going to start the next replay, but I have to take a sip of water. I've been talking a lot, so yes. I also forgot to mute the mic, I'm sorry, so you heard me doing the drinking sounds. Anyway, this is Benzene, and we have Monster spawning at the bottom left as the orange Zerg yet again. And we have Crazio as the purple Terran at the top right. Now, this was submitted by Crazio, and he called this game tough. So I'm excited to see what one of the top AI authors considers a tough game, especially after having seen that previous game, which so far is one of my favorites that I've broadcasted. I just love the stove. I love to see offbeat strategies working out. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. But anyway, I wonder what tough means from a developer's perspective, you know? I imagine it's going to have some heated fights. Maybe there will be an interesting cheese or something. I don't know. So what does tough mean something for a developer that is different from what it means for a player, right? So for me, when I say things are tough, it's it's usually if like I recognize that I'm playing against someone superior, and their micro is better than mine. None of the stuff that I'm trying is working because they're always paying attention everywhere. Their macro is better than mine because they're on more bases, and you know, stuff like that. That's when I consider it tough. I'm like, oof. Like, you know, all the stuff that normally works against people your level is not working anymore against against this person. Stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what Crazio means by tough in this context. We do see 3 quick hatcheries from Monster here, going up to 3 hatches on 2 bases, quite standard for ZVT. What's not standard is placing this hatchery at the front. Now, it is advantageous to put it here if you know you're facing mech. The reason why is because it helps you SimCity your natural. You can add an evolution chamber or Hydralisk Den, Sunken Colony, and now Vulture run-bys are no longer a threat. Crazio is known for going for mech in ZVT, well, in all 3 matchups actually, and is known for going Vultures. So this is a good move in this case, and yeah, there we go. There's the SimCity right here. 2 colonies coming up. What I would probably do is just make 1 sunk, 1 creep left alone. Reason is that Vultures really can't take down buildings worth anything, so you don't need to invest into both of them being sunkens at this time. Something that Nightcat has brought up in the previous broadcast as well, but I do suggest having 1 sunken at least, because it does help with you know, preventing any pressure from coming in. It does take down scouting SCVs when they come out too far. But behind this, Crazio is going to take its expansion quite comfortably, and should be content with the fact that they forced some economic investment from the Zerg player into these creep and sunken colonies. As I mentioned in an earlier game, each building is 1 less drone that's working. Something that you often see new players to StarCraft do, especially new Zerg players, is they build a creep colony at like 9 supply. And even though they don't use it for the next like 10 minutes or something, or 5 minutes or so, and what they don't realize is that that is a net economic loss, right? Because you could have used that drone to mine, but instead you actually used that drone and spent the money on that building that you haven't used in a while. It's kind of like the Protoss equivalent would be to make cannons. Well, the AI do this too. They go like forge 3 cannons in their main base instead of trying to do a expand or something. But or with Terran going for turrets like 2 minutes into the game, for example. You know, it's stuff that doesn't really make sense. But I've deviated a little bit too far off track. We do have the Mutalisks now out for Monster, and the Vultures are keeping the Zerglings penned into the main base. That's quite useful because there aren't a lot of units out for Crazio. So one thing you'll sometimes see Zergs do, Zerg human players at least, is they'll send some Zerglings in and they'll try to snipe turrets and stuff and any additional units like Goliaths in conjunction or before the Mutalisks arrive. No, but the Vultures did a good job of keeping them penned in. The Mutalisk micro from Monster is infamously good. There's some good turret placement here from Crazio, but I don't think it's quite enough. And generally what you see pro gamers do is they place like 3 turrets here and 3 turrets here, and then only if the Mutalisks decide to go past these turrets, they kind of pen themselves in, right? This is where they can do economic damage. That's when you run away with your SCVs and you pull your Marine Medics or Goliaths. So with these individual turrets out here, these are a little bit easier to pick off for a flock of Mutalisks while taking minimal losses, whereas if there's 3 turrets here, 3 turrets here, it's kind of hard to justify engaging against that. But the Goliath count does continue to climb for Crazio here, has a decent economic advantage. I'm sorry, economic and army advantage. 15 Goliaths now against 15 Mutalisks. It's a pretty fair trade. Valkyries now out as well. Do swing that more into the Terran's favor, but this is kind of what I'm talking about here. The Mutalisks were able to run in and force the Valkyrie back when the Terran player might be actually thinking of going offensive soon. Let's see if we have the upgrades. Yes, we do have the range upgrade here. We actually have 2 Carapace on the way for the Zerg player as well, which is quite useful. The reason why is because Goliath missiles, it's actually 2 separate attacks. So when you see it say that, you know, Goliaths do 18 damage or whatever it is, I kind of forget. It's actually 2 missiles worth of 9 damage. So each armor upgrade applies twice against Terran. So that's why it's a good way to counteract the mech upgrades that are add +2 damage to Goliath. For every armor upgrade you minimize, you not neglect, not detract, negate, that's the word. You negate 1 attack upgrade. So being the fact that it's going to hit 2 armor before Crazio hits 2 attack is going to be kind of big here. It's going to open up a little window when Mutalisks should be taking favorable trades. And now Monster, using the fact that the army is out of position and actually unable to push, or at least able to push very, very slowly with only 1 siege tank here, has been able to run in here and take down a lot of turrets, took down a siege tank earlier, taking down a lot of SCVs as well. This is good economic damage from Crazio, who's losing workers left and right. The worker count is almost even. Production facilities, unlike other games like Age of Empires 2, for example, you can keep the unit kind of like, what's the word for it? Like embedded inside the building, right? But in this case, in Brood War, they come out no matter what. So if you're camping the production facilities, you're able to do great amounts of damage. But the push did manage to break through into the natural of Monster here, slowly but surely. And now the Mutalisks are coming in. They're still advantaged in terms of the upgrades, and I think that's why they're trading so well in this case. There is still quite a number of Goliaths here. 19 Goliaths against 17 Mutalisks. I think that could be enough to actually push this down before the +2 attack upgrades finish. The +2 attack upgrades are almost done though, unfortunately. And yeah, this is a tough place to be in for Monster, who's likely going to lose his main base. Monster trying to find damage elsewhere around the map in order to keep its position here. It has kept Crazio down to 2 bases. Crazio has taken its 3rd base rather late for this position. You generally want to take it while you're pushing here. It wasn't an all-in mech push by any means. It's only 3 factories. Normally, if you were doing an all-in mech push off the 2 bases, you would see 5 or more factories here. But again, lots of reinforcements and SCVs and turrets going down, kind of slightly off micro there, though unfortunately took a lot of extra hits for free, and not enough Mutalisks here to stop this push. I feel like if these Mutalisks went back here after having stalled out the reinforcements, the Mutalisks, if they had come back, they would have been able to clear this out, maybe allay some of the pressure that Monster is facing on its front here. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. The push is continuing. Siege Tank kind of an interesting place, low ground here. Definitely would have wanted to see it closer to the Goliaths, which can defend it better. Definitely wanted to see it in the range of the sunken colonies, because taking down the hatchery, that's something that the Goliaths can do from here, right? the siege tank should be taking down the sunken colonies, which is the only thing that is keeping this base alive. But the Muliks arrive, and they have cleaned up this force quite nicely. It should be noted that Monster is still on 2 healthy bases at the north, which is keeping it alive here. But the Terran hasn't completely lost this position. It is repairing back here. It has kind of like a little mini outpost with this turret here. Muliks are taking down Goliaths, though. These are weak. Mulist count, let's look at the army counts again. 14 against 15, still neck and neck in terms of production. Let's look at the upgrades. We do have 3 armor done now for the Mulisk, and the Mulisk that therefore should be taking some decent trades. I don't want to say favorable, but decent trades against the Goliaths here. And especially when you start getting to really high numbers, the spread effect of the glaive worms do come in as a benefit. It should be noted that it has 2 attack upgrade as well to the 2 mech armor here, so those are balanced out as well. Mined out in the main base is Crazio. Natural is almost mined out, so it really needs to hold on to these expansions. Only 2 turrets here right now. That might not be enough. Adding some more though, that's good. Definitely has a lot of turrets here, but a couple of Zerglings running in here could do a lot of damage. We heard a Zergling die just now there. The push is back on though. There's still only 1 siege tank, so this push is quite slow still. Perhaps because of the fact that there's only 3 factories, I would have definitely, well, now there's 4. Would have definitely loved to see something closer, well, 5, okay. Definitely something closer to 8 or 9 factories at this point would be the production that is necessary in order to start taking down these bases. And another expansion here from Monster. There is a Vulture here that's been taking out drones, it seems like. Another expansion attempt from Crazio as well. And now I think I can see why this is called a tough game. It looks like Monster is a tough AI to take down. With the siege tank down, this push is stalled out yet again. That's why you always want more than 1 siege tank, and you want enough Goliath coverage in order to defend it. But I think that Crazio is being pulled left and right all over the map by these running Mutalisks, and even the siege tanks that are coming in with the SV support, there's now not enough Goliaths here to protect them. And then if these siege tanks go down, that's another stall out to the push. Hopefully they can take down this, well, hopefully for Crazio, they can take down at least this hatchery, because you do want to minimize the amount of bases that the Zerg is able to control at this time. You want to continue your push. The Goliaths running forward, they're a little bit piecemeal. You see how they're spread out? I feel like that makes it easier for the Mulists to take them out, because they always fly around in a big clump. We saw 1 go down there. We'll see another one maybe go down here. Yes, we do. And now with 2 siege tanks, these Sunkets might finally go down, but losses of Goliaths and Vultures are hurting this push again. Now finally taking down the last sunken colony, and now finally being able to go in and do some serious damage. If the tech gets taken down, that of course is going to be huge for for Crazio in order to continue this game. Fully mined out off its main and natural, now is on 2 bases, trying to throw down its 3rd here. Vultures are protecting it and keeping units penned in here, so no transfers here. Oh, looks like we're dropping. Are we dropping drones? No, this is just a safer place for the overlords, I guess, which is still good recognition, should be noted. The 2 spires will go down, the spawning pool will go down, and that will make it incredibly hard for Monster to come back. I don't know if Monster is in the habit of remaking tech buildings and structures, but it doesn't seem to be the case. We don't see a layer, we don't see we don't see a spire, we don't see a spawning pool. That's something that you would have thrown down as your main was going down, so something perhaps that could be added to Monster's logic here. You know, if there's any time of point where your spire is 1 hit away from dying, that's when you start adding it. You see, like, the spawning pool Evo chamber addition is a little bit too little too late now at this point, as Crazio pushes his way into this base, takes down the overlords, and now Monster is on top of everything supply capped at 70 supply out of 27. Those overlords are a big loss. There's I think there's a burrowed drone most likely, or maybe it's a burrowed Zergling, but anyway, the Goliath is keeping tabs on as well. Another expansion attempt here and here. And here, actually, Monster is trying desperately to come back into this game, and I think maybe, again, this is what Crazio meant by tough. It's the fact that it's tough to kill off this AI. Your AI has to be on point, finding these bases, pressuring in the right way. We saw so many pushes fizzle out in Monster's main base throughout the course of this game, and that is definitely a testament to Monster, and I can definitely see why Crazio said that it's tough. So, I think regardless, though, Crazio is going to be happy with the outcome here. This base is going to stay up most likely with repairs, more turrets being added. These bases are going to go down shortly, and in the interest of time, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. We don't see much more army production from Monster because of the fact that it still doesn't have any production facility tech, and yet Monster, recognizing that fact, is going to call the GG there. Alright, so I'm gonna call the games there, but as I promised earlier in the broadcast, we do have some announcements. This one is going to be spoiler free. This is just a general announcement that sometime in April, which is this month, sometime in the next few weeks, uh, AIST, which is organized by community member Antigua Irion, who actually suggested one of the replays we watched today, um, is organizing a versus human match for the winner of the AIST tournament. Now, drumroll, that human is me. I have been the chosen victim to fight off against these AI. I did notify Irion that I'm not at peak condition by any means. I assure that there are much better players who are much more willing to not much better players who are also willing. I want to put it that way. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not willing to do it. Who would want to play against AIs and would give promotion? But he said he wanted to choose a community member. I'm grateful to be considered as such, considering the fact that I know nothing about coding or AI for that matter. So yeah, look forward to that in the coming weeks. I will be facing against the winner of AIST in a best of 7 show match. The map pool is quite standard maps from the Snail ladder, something that you guys have probably heard about throughout the course of the past broadcast, but if you haven't, it's the StarCraft human and AI ladder. It allows you to play against all of these top competitors that we've seen. In fact, all of these AI that you see here that participated in AIST are part of the Snail ladder. Stardust, Steamhammer, Banana Brain, Dragon, Willy T, and Purple Wave. You can face off against all of them there, or at least the versions that were uploaded specifically for human play. Now, this is where I'm going to say spoiler alert, because I'm going to go into the results of AIST Season 4, so you guys will know who I'm facing up against in a couple weeks, and you guys get to see the results. So I'll give you a couple seconds. I'll say goodbye to everyone that wants to not be spoilered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. So this is the starting bracket. We saw Steamhammer and Banana Brain, Purple Wave and Dragon in the first round, Stardust and Willy T in the next round. I'm not sure how these were seeded. I don't think it could be by Basil Elo, because I believe that Stardust and Banana Brain, Purple Wave, or Dragon are all higher than Willy T, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But either way, maybe it was random seeding. Either way, Stardust does get a little bit of a boost despite being the best AI in the scene. Willy T getting a little bit of a boost as well. But because of the fact that there's a loser's bracket, it's not entirely unfair. You can always come back from an unfavorable matchup. Now, this is the results. So, in the first round, we saw Banana Brain beating Steamhammer, Purple Wave beating Dragon. So both of these go into the loser's bracket. In round 2, Stardust beat Banana Brain, Purple Wave beat Willy T. Losers round 1 was Willy T beating Steamhammer, Dragon beating out Banana Brain with a 2-1. I'm interested to see that series, honestly. Then we see Willy T beating out Dragon 2-1, which is also interesting. I want to see that. Stardust beating out Purple Wave, repeating the results that we've seen from the SSCAIT tournament, and these results were repeated as well. Purple Wave beating out Willy T, placing it in 3rd place, which congratulations to Willy T. The author in the Discord said that it's their first podium placement. So very well done from that author. Congratulations. And in the finals, we saw Stardust take down Purple Wave 3-1. Again, a repeat of the results from SSCAIT tournament. Purple Wave taking 1 game. Purple Wave, again, notably the champion of the former 2 SSCAIT tournaments. So Stardust, continuing its streak of dominance, is going to win this tournament as well. I believe it's won every tournament that has entered since it's been released, which I believe was around last summer. So that's a huge streak of dominance there. Congratulations to Stardust for that, and for the author. Final standings, you can see them here, but we've already discussed it. And prize pool, $200 going to Stardust, $140 going to Purple Wave, and $60 to Willy T. Congratulations to all of the winners and placers. Better luck next time to everyone else. What that means for me is that unfortunately I have to face off against Stardust in the show match that's coming up in a few weeks. So I did cast a game of myself playing against Stardust where I barely scraped by a win in Protoss vs. Protoss, but I did that by opening with a cannon contain, which is not really standard PvP play. I've also recently been viewing Stardust replays on Snail Ladder to see how are these people beating Stardust. You know, it's a hacker. It makes so many units off of so little probes, you know, because it only needs something like 24 probes to fully saturate a base, right? So I looked at it, and it turns out most of them are either cannon rushing or some other form of cheese in order to stay ahead of Stardust. So, in the interest of both not getting totally embarrassed by, in PvP, in the interest of highlighting some of Stardust's strengths and weaknesses and giving it a matchup that it is used to playing, because I know that the author of Stardust said that they're not very much focused on doing PvZ all that much, or at least PV Monster Z. There is a build that was recently added to Monster that takes advantage of some of Stardust's behaviors, thanks to the research from Felipe Carvalho in the Snail Discord. So I opted to go for Terran. That way I get to protect my ego so that I don't lose with my main race. My TVP is one of my favorite matchups. It's something that I've been playing for the past few years, casually, of course. And yeah, I hope you guys all tune in and enjoy the games. I haven't played them yet, so I'm being optimistic at this point, but I hope to show you guys some interesting games. I'm going to try not to do the same thing every time. We'll see how the first game goes. If I get absolutely raffle stomped, then maybe I'll have to start sticking to standard. If I take the first two wins, maybe I'll try some different builds to showcase where Stardust is strong, where Stardust might need work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I do hope that you guys all tune into that. There will be more details on that posted in our Discord in the coming weeks, and I'm sure that if it happens before my next broadcast, I'll fill you in on greater detail then as well. But that's about it for me today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this broadcast. I wish you all the best of health, happiness, and I hope that all your all your dreams come true. I never remember to write how to outro. I always write the intro. I'm like, okay, time to record, go. And I start recording, and then I get to this head spot, and I'm like, okay, so what do people say when they end a broadcast? Well, I guess wishing you guys all the best, and that all your dreams come true is now my thing. So I'm gonna stop mumbling to myself now. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.